Oh, we're recording. Hi, welcome to your e-learning. It is Wednesday, my dudes, January 26th. There's a few things that I'm going to go over besides just reading the article. And because I have your attention, I'm going to do that right now. Um, I want to say today, but it's Wednesday. So on Tuesday, January 25th, I posted a little graphic organizer. That graphic organizer looks a little something like this. That's the data. Here is the organizer. It's the European Colonization graphic organizer. And if you were in class, you should have gotten a paper copy. But just real quick, what I want you to do here is take the English, French, and Spanish colony fact sheet, which you'll see in the same post that looks like this, and just read through that table and take a look at all three of these countries' kind of perspective from colonization. And what you'll see is you have three countries, right? You have France, England, and Spain that are beginning to colonize this quote new world. Well, they had different perspectives. So real quick, when it comes to the politics, who is creating laws in the colonies and who are the colonists subjects to? And the word subjects here is super good for you to understand because subjects implies that they have no say in government. And what I would like to do is just leave little breadcrumbs of history where you see the empowerment of people and not necessarily power coming from the top like a king or a queen. So just looking at the politics real quick, we've got something already in for the French. So let's take a look at the English. And if you zoom in, Mr. Wenrich, oh, it's beautiful. What you will do is see just the government perspective. So when it comes to England, distance from England and a frugal parliament allowed colonists to set up local governments and representative assemblies and to tax themselves. So the word frugal just means cheap. And what the English perspective was on colonization is they just wanted to take a step back, establish some ground here, and start making money for the English crown. So what I would write in for here is English colonies were able to tax themselves. Done. They could create their own rules and they're not being they are not subjected by any top-down rule like from a king or a queen. Okay, so sticking with government, let's find something with France again, might as well, right? So we've already got this. Colonies were fully subject to the French king. No political rights or representative government and public meetings could not be held without permission. So let's see here, back to the French. French colonies could not publicly assemble without permission. So you couldn't get people all together and say, wow, the king is really kind of screwing up there, right? No, King Louis screwing up. Yeah. No, you couldn't do that. Not without permission. So again, you see the crown, the monarchs try to retain control, and that will be a common theme. Okay, let's go to Spain. Colonies were governed by crown appointed viceroys or governors. Okay, settlers had to obey the king's laws and could make none of their own. So again, dominant theme here, just Spanish colonists could not make their own rules. And you're following along. Thanks, Google Doc. Man. Okay, next. Let's see. Who was creating laws? Spanish colonists could not make their own rules or laws. All right, let's see if we can get one more. Oh, this one's a fun little nugget. Going back to the English, And this is important because our right to bear arms is very much grounded in English history, English precedent. So English colonists could make their own rules as long as they did not take up arms against the crown. So keep that in mind, because guess what? English colonists do eventually take arms against the English crown. That's how our government got started. Come on. So English colonists could arm themselves as long as they didn't use those arms against the English crown. I can spell eventually. There you go. And there you go. I think that is a great start for the political stuff. And again, because some of you might get the hang of it now, I don't really want to go through and pick off everything. I don't want to do this work for you. It will be your job to know the basics here for the politics, the economics, the culture, and the social side of it. But just real quick for the economic side, oh wow, look where you find it at there. It says economy. The English were more diverse, and you'll see that when we start looking at the individual colonies. Tobacco was the main source of revenue in the Virginia and North Carolina colonies. For the French, I mentioned it in class, the importance of beaver pelts. The fur trade was very lucrative. Where were they at? The Mississippi Valley. Now, the larger establishments did fail, but as you'll learn when we get to the English or the 7 Years' War / French and Indian War, those large French establishments, what they did there, what they accomplished is they got a lot of Native American help. Now, with the Spanish, it is a little bit of a mixed bag because of the importance of their military. There is a word, conquistadors, conquerors. That was very much a Spanish thing. They were looking for gold there. For culture, again, look at religion. And another place that you can come up with is this, the population sources. So where they got people from, because when you colonize, you're not just immediately, oh, I'm in a new world now, I guess I'm completely different. No, you are just taking with you what you already know. So again, the English were mostly middle class. They had skills. The French were fur traders and merchants and missionaries, so they are spreading their religion. For the Spanish, again, conquistadors, soldiers, a little bit of missionaries sprinkled in there. We saw that today in the video in Crash Course. And then when it comes to the social side, what I want you to do here is look at the interactions with Native Americans. And that is at the very bottom. With the English, it was originally friendly. English did eventually come into contact, and you'll see that with the Proclamation of 1763. So after England retains power after the 7 Years' War, what they do is they tell colonists, you can't go beyond this line. And I'll show a map in class, but the line is essentially the Appalachian Mountains. They want to keep their colonies towards the coast because they know they have established colonies there by that time, and they didn't want to dip into Native American territory because they didn't want the fight. As you'll find out in 1763, not a great time to get into a fight if you're English, because they were just in a big war with France. And I had a college professor say the 7 Years' War / French and Indian War was the First World War. And considering where the battles were, yeah. All right, so back with the French. Despite conversion efforts of missionaries, French respect for Native Americans allowed many to forge alliances. Bingo. especially in their wars against the British. And as you saw today in the crash course video, the Spanish were not necessarily great to the Native Americans, forced conversion of religion. And again, when it comes to religion, that actually plays into today's article. So let's get to that. That again, just to recap, that is how I would do the European colonization little graphic organizer. I am going to test you on that sheet there on Friday. And those of you that are watching this video, hey, right on. Now you know. And now people can't complain if it's not a pop quiz, it's a pop quiz. It's not a pop quiz when I told you about it. Hey, watch my videos. Okay, let's get to this article here. It's about the Protestant Reformation. My boy, Martin Luther. Yeah, baby. Let's get to it. The Protestant Reformation and its role in the American colonies. Man, let's get to it. The Protestant Reformation was a religious reform movement in Europe in the 1500s. A reform movement seeks to change some part of society in order to improve it. The Protestant Reformation resulted in the creation of a new kind of Christian religion called Protestantism. It includes many religious groups that separated from the Roman Catholic Church due to differences in their beliefs. Bam. Wow, that's a really great introduction paragraph. Wow. Oh, it originated in Germany. Hola. That's Spanish. I don't know why I just said that. Stick to the article language. Here we go. The Protestant Reformation began in Wittenberg, Germany on October 31st, 1517. Martin Luther, a teacher and a monk, started the movement. He published a document he called Disputation on the Power of Indulgences, or 95 Theses. The document was a series of 95 ideas about Christianity that he invited people to debate with him. These ideas caused a great deal of debate because they directly went against the Catholic Church's teachings. And this is important. The Catholic Church is an established power. You know who's in charge. It's the Pope. So anytime that the Catholic Church has been told that it's wrong, people don't tend to like that, especially if you're within that faith. Why? Because the Catholic faith likes order. You know who the leader of the church is. That leader of the church there was put there by a cardinal, and that cardinal was put there by an archbishop, and that archbishop was put there by a pope, and you can clearly see the lineage there. So Luther's statements challenged the Catholic Church's role as the middleman between people and God. He specifically challenged the indulgence system. The indulgence system allowed people to buy a certificate of pardon for their sins. So just let me repeat, this is what an indulgence is. And this is what Martin Luther had a problem with. He said, I have a problem with you saying that I can get rid of my sins if I just pay enough money for it. My sin will go away if I buy a certificate. Okay. Luther argued against the practice of buying or earning forgiveness, believing instead that salvation is a gift God gives to those who have faith. Luther's objections to the indulgence system led to other challenges to Catholic beliefs by himself and others throughout Europe. For example, John Calvin in France and Huldrych Zwingli in Switzerland proposed their own new ideas. A group called Anabaptists rejected the idea that infants should be baptized. They favored the idea that baptism was reserved for adult Christians. So again, new ideas about an old way or old system, this is where you have that term reform come in. Cutting out the middleman. Broadly speaking, most of the challenges to the Catholic Church revolved around one core idea, It was the notion that individual believers should be less dependent on the Catholic Church's pope and priests. I'm going to highlight that here for you. That is an important sentence. It was the notion, and by it, I mean the main challenge, was the notion that individual believers should be less dependent on the Catholic Church's pope and priests. Instead, Protestants believed people should have an independent relationship with God. They wanted people to take personal responsibility for their faith and refer directly to the Bible for worship and wisdom. Pretty much Protestantism is bringing religion to the people. And as you will see in this class, there is going to be other movements like the creation of our country that empowers individuals or individual groups that will take control and direct where the government should go or their religion. It's a very democratic movement, a movement coming from the people. In England, Protestant reform began with Henry VIII in 1534 because the Pope would not allow him to cancel his marriage. That led King Henry to reject the Pope's authority, instead creating and taking authority over the Church of England himself. He created a mixed belief church that combined some Catholic beliefs and some Protestant ideals. So now you have an actual king in 1534 checking the power of the Catholic Church. That was a huge blow. And as you'll see, here we go. Over the next 20 years, there was religious turbulence in England. So England, our country that has a huge influence on us, went through a time where there was a lot of there was turbulence in general. Not turbulence because of an economic problem, not turbulence because of war with another country, but because of religion. So our founders knew this. They knew this. Queen Mary, who lived from 1516 to 1558, reinstated Catholicism in the country. Oh, she oppressed and kicked out Protestants. Oh, I wonder where they'll go. Huh. Later, Queen Elizabeth I and her parliament attempted to lead the country back toward Protestantism during her reign from 1533 to 1603. Uh-oh. Some English citizens did not believe Queen Elizabeth's efforts to restore England to Protestantism went far enough. These citizens fell into two groups, both labeled Puritans by their opponents. The first group, known as separatists, believed the English church was so dishonest that their only choice was to leave England. I wonder where they'll go. I wonder. Separate from the church and start a new one. They call this the English separatist church. Separatists and Puritans. Around 1607 or 1609, some of the separatists tried to start the new lives they imagined in Holland, in the Netherlands. Ultimately, the plan failed. They faced poverty and felt that their children were becoming part of Dutch culture instead of English. Many of the separatists returned to England. That's where they went. By 1620, members of the English separatist church were ready for a second try at establishing a new life in church. Those who set sail aboard the Mayflower for New England eventually landed near Plymouth, Massachusetts. They would, over time, become known as the Pilgrims. So the people that are settling in Massachusetts, which, by the way, will be leading a lot of the revolution against the English, already have a cultural history of saying, I'm out of here. I want to go. Bye. You're not doing right. Bye. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going anywhere. But that's the thing. They had an idea. They wanted to leave. They did leave. They didn't like where they were at. They came back and then they're like, what are we doing? We're going to the new world. That's what we're doing. The other group of English citizens who did not believe Queen Elizabeth's reform efforts went far enough were called non-separatists. Over time, they would be called Puritans. They did not seek to leave the Church of England. They only wanted to reform it by getting rid of the parts of Catholicism that remained within it. So even the group that split away from the Catholic Church are having people split and break away. Now, if they are doing that in one part of their lives, they're probably might wanting to do that in other parts of their lives because they are becoming empowered. The individual groups or people are becoming empowered. The Puritans did not desire to separate from the Church of England. However, some of them saw moving to New England as their best chance at true reform of the church and freedom to worship as they choose. In 1630, a decade after the Pilgrims embarked on a similar journey for similar reasons, the first Puritans traveled to the New World. They established the Massachusetts Bay Colony in Boston, Massachusetts. And there you go. We're getting into colonial history just by learning about this reform movement called Protestantism. Though the separatists and non-separatists disagreed about whether to cut ties to the Church of England, both groups of early American colonists were unhappy with the church. They both felt they were free to start a church more in line with their beliefs. This freedom to practice religion according to one's beliefs led to the creation of countless different churches and beliefs in the colonies. This wide variety of ideas has also led to disagreements. Shocking. When people get involved in religious fire wars, there's going to be disagreement. This variety of religious thought has also become a core value of the United States. The first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution are called the Bill of Rights. It specifically says that the US government cannot have an official religion, and it also cannot stop people from following their preferred religious practices. Over 400 years in the making, this belief in personal empowerment and religious independence has its roots in the Protestant Reformation. It has become an enduring part of the American colonies. I assume it says colonies. Oh, the American mindset. Son of a gun. And there's the article. So in this video, I went over how to do this. I should say this. Yeah, the American colonization or the European colonization. Okay. And we got into some more history. So when we get back on Thursday, what I'd like to do is go over another big movement called just enlightenment, where people literally are becoming smarter. And one of the reasons why they're becoming smarter is they are becoming empowered through their religion. One thing that Martin Luther did, among other things, is utilize, among other people, I should say, is utilize a piece of technology called the print press. And as the print press was utilized, one of the most infamous books that it would publish is the Bible. And people learn to read through their religion. And if you learn how to read, that is a skill that you can use in other parts of your life. And you're probably going to want to read other stuff. So now with enlightenment, you'll see the development of philosophers that we will become very familiar with, like John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Thomas Hobbes. God, who else? There's a lot of other Enlightenment philosophers that we'll get into. And it really wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't have my cat's tail just randomly show up. So let's end this video, not with my cat's tail in the way, but by having Smokely say goodbye. Yeah. Protestant Reformation, Smokely, can you believe it? I can. Okay, let's end this. Have a great day. Hopefully this video is very helpful for you. Ew, my cat's licking my head. Ugh. Bye.